instead of the brand. So we took that into account and we started looking at all of those things, and we're familiar with nh-3. nh-3 ultimately started out as being a payment processor, which means they are taking all of the credit card payments for all services within the practice. So since they're embedded in the practice, there's an ability to turn on loyalty programs that are easy to integrate into the practice flow. You can have brands that participate, so we can turn on white label loyalty. We can turn on subscription services. And so we thought this is a very innovative way to not just offer a Me Too loyalty program, but to take one step further and create a next generation platform. The beauty of it too, since it basically takes the credit card and processes all the things in the practice, we can also provide really unique insights to the practice around, hey, profitability profile, charge per patient, how that benchmarks. And this will all be their data, right? So they'll control that, but we'll be able to do some really unique things there around customer promotions and everything else. And because it's a credit card processor, there's a source of revenue that's associated with it. So with every transaction, there's an opportunity for us to participate into 50 to 100 basis points, which is what a normal credit card processor would get. So they're not paying anything extra to us, but we have that ability to participate in that portion of the overall credit card transaction fee. So if you look at $56 billion in annual credit card transaction processing in the U.S. market, 50 to 100 basis points, you're talking about something north of a $500 million market. Now, we're in the very early stages. Our focus right now, frankly, is getting installs so that we can get the system up and running. We can turn on these other services. As we turn on these other services, I think there'll be plenty of opportunities for us to look at sort of how we capture margin. So the thing that we're very focused on right now is what are we annualizing at from an overall credit card transaction processing volume? Because if you look at most fintech companies, Square and these others, they talk about, annualized processing volume. We talked about the end of last year, we ended with about, more than $200 million in annual credit card transaction processing volume. And so, we continue to be encouraged with how that is evolving. And I think the more that we ultimately process, there'll be more opportunity for margin side of it. The other thing that we've talked about is we've got a next generation introduction that we're going to put into place. And I won't bog you down with the technical details, but once we launch it, we'll come back to the markets and give more insight. But at a high level, we'll become what's called a payment facilitator. And that's going to give us a lot more flexibility in terms of how we can manage these programs. And so we thought it was really important to wait to get to that implementation before we more broadly turn on a bunch of the features. So that's going to come sort of this summer. And we're really excited about bringing that innovation forward as well.
Okay. And is there any competition for such a product or platform, or is it really kind of a greenfield opportunity right now?
It's pretty greenfield. I mean, I think everybody is recognizing that there's opportunity in payments. So you might have EMR companies that want to offer a payment solution, or, other companies that might want to offer a payment solution, but they're more sort of bolt-ons to what they're already doing versus a comprehensive solution of, loyalty programs, subscription services, brand partnerships, data insight and analytics. So we right now are in very much of a greenfield opportunity. And I would say that, most of the time when we go in there, we're displacing something like a Verifone credit card swipe or a Square or something like that, where it's just the primary function of that payment processor is to just process payments versus being attached with anything else.
Okay. So really the initial focus for nh-3 is getting as many accounts as possible, subscribe to the platform, and then growing revenue volumes from there.
That's correct. And when I say adding as many, right now we are using our RHA sales force as sort of the initial lead gen on this. So we aren't just trying to go out and sell it to everybody. We're very much targeted on those accounts that we're already in, with respect to so it is, skewed towards this prestige category as well.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to Daxi. And I don't want to disappoint anybody, so I have to ask the question.
Sure.
Any updates on whether the FDA is leaving their house and conducting manufacturing site inspections?
Yeah, well, I think as we've said before, Serge, we typically don't comment on where we are with sort of regulatory processes and stuff. We are, building inventory. We're ready for the launch when we get approval. We're really not able to comment. I'm sure, all of you have seen whatever public communication comes out from the FDA. There was of note Spectrum Pharmaceuticals, who had a PDUFA date a month before us, did announce that they've got an inspection in their South Korea manufacturing facility in May. So clearly the agency is, starting to do some inspections or schedule some inspections, but we're just not really able to comment any more on that. Okay.
So at this point, if we wanted to kind of anchor a timeline for launch, it's too early to say mid 2021 or late 2021.
Yeah, we just can't comment. So
sure. Okay. I guess let's talk about your, let's assume the product does get approval. The label expectations have been a source of discussion, and I think there's been a few questions of what it could look like, and is it important? Does it mean anything, or physicians will end up doing whatever they want to do once they have the product in their hands?
Well, I'll start there at the end. I mean, I think always, particularly in the aesthetics market, the performance of the product is ultimately going to dictate sort of that experience. I mean, it doesn't matter if we've got a 1-year claim, right? If in the hands of the physician, they see that it lasts, less, not enough time for them, that's going to change, and vice versa. So I think clearly the product performance is going to be the biggest driver in terms of the experience and how they think about it. And we continue to feel really good about the clinical data that we've generated. But I'll take you back to sort of our prior commentary. I think one of the bear arguments out there was that there was some new FDA guidance around, kind of what would need to be in the label to inform sort of duration. And then when the Evolus label came out, they only had sort of duration up to 1 month. And I think there was this narrative that, hey, you need to show 2 lines of improvement out over time. And that's ultimately how the agency is going to determine duration. What we've always said is we believe that the data that we've generated from our clinical trial will be reflected in the label, and that would lay the foundation ultimately for what marketing claims that we can make. And so that's something that we've been very consistent in terms of stating since we go back. We have no reason to change sort of our stance on that side of it. And so we believe that the data that we generated in our clinical trial, that we'll be able to use that as a basis for marketing claims in the market.
Okay. And I know in the past you've also talked about also positioning this as a prestige or premium product relative to current neuromodulator offerings. Maybe talk about that. Is it something similar to what you're doing with the RHA fillers? What's the appetite for a premium product?
Yeah, well, I'll take you back to the commentary I made around kind of the consumer research and the physician research. And, matter of fact, there was a real self survey that they did that